The new questions today as the White House comes under fire for a decision to update the official online biographies of several past presidents. Footnotes on the White House webpage linking President Obama's accomplishments to the actions of previous presidents and taking some editorial liberties with the comparisons between the current president and our prior presidents. This one on former President George W. Bush's webpage includes a box that talks about did you know? It's an alleged fact box that says in 2002, President George W. Bush's State of the Union was the first to be live broadcast on the internet. But in 2011 and 2012, President Obama's State of the Union speeches were available in an enhanced live stream version that featured infographics, charts, and data side by side in real time with the president's speech. That's not the most controversial, but it's an example of what the president is doing. Well, what if George W. Bush had done this? Joining us now, Simon Rosenberg. He's a former Clinton campaign advisor and president and founder of the New Democrat Network. And Mark Thiessen, who's the former Bush speechwriter and a fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. So we had a lot of fun with this debate, both guys on both sides. I mean, because, you know, the RNC, and we'll show our viewers some of this, put out some, they took it to a Forrest Gump-like place where they said, oh, you know, President Obama's put himself in all these prior presidencies, and they put out these funny things of, look how much he's done. Here he is with the Beatles. They had one of him on the moon. They had one of him with Elvis. But I want to ask you, Mark, whether there would have been considerable blowback, more blowback, if your former boss had tried to update the bios of presidents like JFK and Harry Truman by linking their accomplishments to his own.
Well, I don't think my former boss would have let me get away with anything like that. But in honesty, Megan, I think I'm going to come to President Obama's defense here. I think he actually was too modest. I think he left out some historic accomplishments from his administration's record. And since President Bush would have never let me... Well, there, absolutely. But, you know, since President Bush would have never let me write something like this for him, I took the liberty of coming up with a few suggestions for President Obama that he could take or leave. Like, for example, in the bio of President Bush, he could note that during the Bush administration, the national debt rose by $4 trillion over 8 years, but President Obama succeeded in meeting that same number in just 3 years. He could note in the Coolidge bio, for example, that President Salvin Coolidge was known famously as Silent Cal for his reluctance to use to publicly tout his administration's accomplishments, whereas President Obama has used the pronoun I more than any president in American history.
Oh, boy.
Jimmy Carter became the first American president. Jimmy Carter.
I don't think this is very likely, but Simon, I want to ask you, is it appropriate for the president? I want to just make sure our viewers know. So the way it worked is, you know, bio of Ronald Reagan, like here, and then the White House put on its little addendum on the bottom, like right underneath. So it's not intermixed in the bio, but it's right on the guy's bio pages. And some are saying, Simon, you can't be doing that. That's the whitehouse.gov website. It's the people's website. It's not Barack Obama's website.
Well, I think if Barack Obama gets criticized for what he orders for lunch every day and what color tie he has on, so I think it's perfectly in keeping for him to get criticized over something as innocuous as this. Megan, the thing that you just showed about George Bush was pointing out that George Bush had done something good, right? That he was the first person to put, a State of the Union speech on the internet, right? And so,
but the criticism is he's trying to make it all about him. So that was something George Bush had done, but then it's like, oh, back to me.
I know, but I think it's perfectly appropriate. First of all, they've been very clear. They did not change the actual bios to be clear about that, right? The second thing is these were addendums at the bottom, and I think it's perfectly okay to use history to help inform the present. We learned the comment that I think got many people upset was the quote about Ronald Reagan saying something that's similar to the Buffett rule.
Let me show them. I'll let you finish your thought. Let me show them what you're talking about. This is what he addended to Ronald Reagan's bio. In a June 28, 1985 speech, Reagan called for a fairer tax code, one where a multimillionaire did not have a lower tax rate than his secretary. This is President Obama's words. Today, President Obama is calling for the same with the Buffett rule. Now, that's a controversial rule that has a partisan divide surrounding it, and a lot of Republicans are saying, don't be suggesting President Obama or President Reagan would have favored the Buffett rule.
I mean, here we are, the president getting criticized for praising George Bush and Ronald Reagan in these footnotes, and you know, there being outrage and anger over him actually drawing attention to good things that Republicans have done. And you know, he can't win, right? I think, and so I think this is all tempest in a teapot. And at the end of the day, Mark, I'm surprised you're spending so much time on this. I thought the job was to talk about the economy and to stay focused on the economy and not talk about these extraneous matters.
You know, I got to hand it to the RNC because people started to talk about it more when we saw those funny pictures. I mean, you got to, Simon, even you got to laugh at those pictures, no?
The pictures are funny. The pictures are funny. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, no, the problem is this goes to type. Look, every president compares himself sometimes to his predecessors in explaining what he's trying to achieve. But the fact is, President Obama went and compared himself to every American president in some way, shape, or form, and how he is building on their legacies and taking it to the next level. And the reality is this plays to type. This is the president who gave his convention speech in a replica of a Roman forum. This is the guy who said that future generations would remember his administration as the moment that the oceans stopped rising and the earth began to heal. I mean, and if you want to see a difference between President Bush and President Obama, just look at the speeches that they each gave, announcing the killing of Osama bin Laden and the capture of Saddam Hussein. During the capture of Saddam Hussein's speech, President Bush referred to himself only once or twice, and it was to say that I called the troops to congratulate them on their achievement, and everything was we and what the troops had achieved. President Obama's speech on bin Laden was, I directed Secretary Panetta, I looked at the intelligence, I ordered, I this, and he even went further and turned it into a political ad. This is the most self-referential, egomaniacal president that we've had in American history, and this is just another piece of evidence about that.
Simon, I'll give you the last word.
It's hard to follow that. Mark
and he wrote the speech, so he knows.
I know. Mark was very prepared today. Well done, Mark. I think you've had a good day. You've had a good day today.
Simon's last word is conceding defeat in the argument.
Yeah.
That's very
not conceding defeat. I just think that I'm surprised Mark has veered off the talking points today. I thought we're supposed to focus on the economy, jobs, and the debt. And you wove it in there.
So that was
that's what I well done.
With.
All right. We'll leave it on that happy note. We'll try. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Megan.
We're taking your thoughts on it. Follow me on Twitter @Megan Kelly. Well, coming up next, as the autopsy of Trayvon Martin is